and good evening to one. Good evening to all. Thank you for tuning in to our show. We welcome you here to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Well, when they say when things go wrong, it go wrong. I remember, ladies and gentlemen, good listeners of mine, I remember when I was on the Defense Force many years ago. Must have been about 35 years ago. I was serving as base first lieutenant. That means I was dealing with all the putting people on charge when they come late, if you miss work, if you try to dug the ship to go to sea, if your uniform ain't right. So I was the base first lieutenant, and you have your chronic laters, people who come late. I know how come I never used to come late, because I was a chronic later too, until I was base first lieutenant, and then I realized I couldn't come late no more. But anyway, one of the excuses we always got, and I always thought people lying, is when they say, I got a flat coming the way. I mean, that's all jobs, I guess. Because I'm on the way to the studio here, I hear plap, 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 plap in my truck. I was like, hold on, that can't be no flat tire. And I had no backup plan. And if I was going on a job where I have to report at a certain time, the only thing I do is tell the person I get flat. And I know they ain't gonna believe me. Because that is the one thing people always use when they're trying to say, well, I was late. You can't tell them they had no flat, boy, but this time I had a flat for true. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for my late arrival. My good buddy here, Craig Gibson, my wonderful producer, tried to keep things going. At least he let y'all know I was coming, right? I said, Craig, man, put on something so they can know I come in. So I thank you for holding on. And we got a packed, loaded show tonight. You got me and only me and y'all. It's me and y'all tonight. I look for a lot of calls tonight. I got a lot of information to put out there. And this stuff could be interesting. Our country, the Bahamas, is poised to be a super wealthy country in a matter of months. Next year at this time, so all us should be millionaires, people. And I just throw it out there because I could say that. I throw it out there because that's how it looked like it gotta happen. I can only tell you what I see, because I know fellow who went to know, I'm talking things and praying and hoping, and I a fellow who I like to see writing on the wall. And I seeing so much writing on the wall now with this carbon credit thing that there's no way all Bahamians shouldn't be millionaires within 5 years. From today, mark my word. I mean, the government may say let the money stay in the kitty and we get billions and billions that we ain't got nothing to do with. Or the government may say, but let every Bahamian get a little something. Or the government may say every job we got, if you're a Bahamian and you're working, you could be making 10 times what everybody else make. I remember when I was at Dartmouth. That's Britannia Royal Naval College, where all Defense Force officers trained back in the day, back in the 80s, eh? It wasn't no other place to go but Dartmouth. If you don't go to Dartmouth, you ain't gonna be no officer. So, while I was at Dartmouth, we had the British people, and then we had us, who they call INTs, or the internationals, INTS. They shorten internationals for INTs. I was in class INT 1, then they had INT 2, INT 3. And you find that you have people from all over the world, internationals from all over the world, go to Dartmouth. Because Dartmouth that's where Queen Elizabeth, Prince Charles, Prince Andrew, that's where all of them did their training, their military training, at Dartmouth. And then some of them went other places as well. But Dartmouth is where the naval officers, all naval officers for the Royal Navy, trained at Dartmouth. And of course, we had a good handful of Bahamian officers that trained, and still training at Dartmouth. Every year we got a Bahamian there doing their officers, OUTs as they call us, officers under training program. So they had classes for the West Indian people. Well, we mixed. It was the Bahamians, the Jamaicans, Trinidadians, Grenadians. Where else people were coming from to go to Dartmouth? I don't remember nobody from Suriname. But anyway, we had a mix of Caribbean, and then Sri Lanka, Singapore. So all the English-speaking countries outside of the UK Indians, I guess they have their own maritime training school. But basically, if you're an English-speaking smaller countries, like developing countries and whatnot, where you don't have an established armed force that do your own training, eh? Mind you, we do our own training here, but not for officers. Officers don't train in the Bahamas. So, why I said that is, we had a group of Arabs. And the Arabs, they were from places like Kuwait, they were from places like Qatar, UAE. So we had people from those wealthy countries, wealthy oil-drenched countries. And I was kind of close with some of them because we had people who were prince and king in the making and their families, and they're from the royal family of those rich nations. And they were training at Dartmouth just like me. But of course, I could have beat all them playing basketball and my little acrobat. So they all, everybody liked me in Dartmouth. So I was good at everything, right? So anyway, the Arabs, I found that while we were making $600 a month, mind you, this back in 1981, eh? So $600 a month basically was what the government paid. And that was in the lowest they paid. They used to pay people $400 and $500 a month. But anyway, we were making like $600 a month. Do you know what the Arabs, the average Arab was making? Those guys is getting $7,500 a month. And if you're a prince or something like that, you're getting probably that a week. That's because their countries were oil rich. And when it comes to their citizens, they would, because to get a citizen to want to be an officer, naval officer, you got to entice them with money that is paying higher than the other job. They have to do that. They got to go be a bus boy and probably make $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month, right? So they had to entice them as officers to go and be officers for their country. Anyway, I said that to say this. When your country got loads and loads of money, your citizens are paid far higher than if you didn't have no loads and loads of money. So now that the Bahamas is poised to make all of this money, and then listen, I ain't trying to put nobody on. We are poised to make a whole heap of money. Why? Because we are what you call a carbon sink. Our country, more so than any other country in the world, have more carbon utilizing sea plants. So that the things like seagrass, things like mangroves, and things like salt marshes, they take in carbon dioxide faster, 30 to 40 times faster than the regular average tree in the forest. And because of that, the world is now threatened. Our earth is threatened because we have too much carbon in the air. What the carbon does? Why are we concerned about carbon, eh? Carbon, my dear listener, is now blocking the ozone layer and the thing. When heat gets so far up, because so much carbon is up there, it can't pass and go outside of the Earth's atmosphere. So it's trapped. And because the heat is trapped, we now getting hotter than we normally would be. Because never before in the history of the world, heat was trapped. How did heat get trapped? Heat get trapped because of our cars. What we emit is carbon monoxide. Our ships, what those engines emit is carbon dioxide. When humans breathe out, we breathe out carbon dioxide. We take in oxygen and carbon dioxide comes out. So on an ongoing basis, we are generating all this carbon. And all those ships at sea, 50,000 commercial ships, and then you got another 200-300 probably millions of smaller vessels, but they all have engines. And every time you start one of them engines, see what happens is you have what you call a combustion chamber in those engines. You have for that engine to work, you have a cylinder and a piston. Now, I know mechanic. right? But I get a good idea how engines work. If you say you got a 4-cylinder car, that means you get 4 cylinders with pistons going up and down. And if you get an 8-cylinder, 10-cylinder, them big trucks we've got 20 and 18-cylinder. So we all happening is the piston, as the crankshaft turns, the piston comes down. It suppresses the air inside. The oxygen in particular heats up and it expands. And that pressure pushes the piston back up. And all this inside the cylinder. And when the piston coming back up, they have little vents and outlets where the carbon dioxide needs to get out, because now you need fresh air again to press again, to heat up again, right? So it goes back, and then while it's going down, you have a situation where the ports close, and they have something that squirts. That's a little squirt of fuel. Because what's the fire triangle? The fire triangle is oxygen, heat, and fuel. Once the three of them mix together, you get a fire. And what fire burns? Fire burns carbon dioxide and carbon. So when you have those forest fires all over the world, you're not only killing the trees that exhales oxygen for us to breathe, you actually sending carbon up in the air from the fire. And as trees degrade, they let off a lot of carbon that they have in them, in their trunks and whatnot, right? So carbon is always going in the air. Carbon dioxide, and because we're not going to get rid of our cars, we're not going to get rid of ships, we're not going to get rid of places like BPL and Freeport Power, where they got to make energy for us. I want you to know they got big turbines that make those energy, right? And they're all over the world. Even the gas ones, when they burn, they let off carbon dioxide. So we got carbon all over the place. And because of all that carbon, the United Nations and its ambits, like the IMO and every other entity, especially the aviation area with all the planes, they got to cut carbon too. So they decided now, we are getting to a state in this world where carbon is causing such a problem and the heat is getting so out of order that all those ice around the North and South Pole are starting to melt. And if we go another 1.5 degree centigrade or more on an average day, right? On average, they'll be probably around, in the Bahamas, say 25, 26 degrees. We used to do Fahrenheit, but we're talking centigrade, right? So if that average start come up to 1.5, let's say 2 degrees more, that means more of that water, ice will melt, turn into water, and that water goes into the oceans, and the oceans rise. And if it gets to 2%, my dear listener, the Bahamas finish. Because it's going to raise the level to about, 20, 30 feet? And so the Bahamas will be covered, we'll be underwater. Not only the Bahamas, this is a worldwide phenomenon that if we don't do it, and we continue to use all this fossil fuel and the carbon, continue to trap all this heat, we are doomed. You see, manhood caused this problem. Because we like slackness and luxury and fast planes and fast cars and boats. We have become so dependent on releasing carbon into the air that we didn't realize until recently that this carbon is going to bring us to an end. So the world got to respond. The world have to respond. And how is the world responding? The world is responding by the United Nations, the IMO, some of the environmental entities of the United Nations. They're saying to the world that we have to not only stop emitting carbon, we have to pull some of the carbon out of the air so that the heat can escape. You ain't need to be no scientist to figure all that. All right, breaking it down to your layman terms, eh? This is how all of my research I've been doing is telling me this was going on. So our country, the Bahamas, is poised to be a super wealthy country in a matter of months. Our world is threatened by global warming. And if the necessary actions to alleviate the carbon footprint is not engaged, a vast area of the world as we know it will become submerged forever. Because the ice can continue to melt, eh? Particularly low-lying areas such as our lovely Bahamas. So you see, dear listener, it's not a matter of whether we will protect against this carbon blockage, but how soon can we accomplish what you keep hearing as net zero carbon emissions. What is net zero carbon emissions? That means for every ounce of carbon that is emitted into the environment, you need to have something that takes it out of the environment. That means all the fossil fuel that we got going on right now have to cut down. The fossil fuel will have to cut down where we could use things that they have down fuel that don't have no carbon in it. They have a way of taking the carbon out of the fuel. And we can talk about all that tonight. Well, I mean, we don't pass half hour because of my lateness, but there's some serious stuff. And I know next week you have to be talking about this some more, right? But we have to accomplish net zero carbon emissions. Excuse me. We should all have heard the speech, the famous speech by the Prime Minister of Barbados, Miss Mia Mottley, when she begged the international community to ensure that the temperature does not rise to more than 1.5 degrees centigrade. She put on a speech where she's begging them, come, we can't let it get to 1.5. We got to do something about it. This is real. This happening, right? In our lifetime, this is happening. So, it's us who got to do something about it. Now, the international community are tripling down. They ain't doubling with Donald Trump and say, he got to double down. No, they tripling down on strategies to make all fossil fuel users ensure that whatever carbon they emit or put into the environment is offset by attaining an equal amount of carbon capture and disposal to their credit. So the Bahamas, because we have, I always say the west side of Andros was a waste, because you can't really build there. Everything's just marshes and seagrass and that swampy area. That's what we call it, swamps. But now, according to how things going, that stuff is more valuable than oil. If you go to the west coast of Andros and when you dig and you find oil, that ain't as expensive or as good right now as those mangroves and salt marshes. Well, I ain't sure we got too much of them anyway. I even know what they look like. But I know the mangroves and the seagrass are there. When you go on Goodman's Bay Beach, sometime you always try to avoid the grassy patch, them grassy areas, right? Because we don't like how the slime and stuff feel on our foot. We feel like, boy, you come across a ball, you can get cut and whatnot. We hate the grass. But do you know that that grass is what they're talking about? When they talk about they take in 35 times more carbon dioxide than a tree in the forest. And they're depending on these forests to keep our carbon in check because the trees breathe out carbon dioxide. And they they breathe in carbon dioxide, they take it in and they breathe out oxygen. So they kind of help to purify and clean the air from all the carbon as well. But the trees on land only do it 1/35 as the trees in the sea. The sea don't got no trees growing out the water, you know. Most of our seas, you see, you got mangroves growing a little out the water, but they don't ever get tall like trees on land. But you know, they are so valuable right now that for centuries, the Bahamas was keeping the carbon out there. But now what they say? They got to pay us for it now. Because we ain't going to stop the seagrass and mangroves from doing what they do. Why would we want to stop that? But since we saving the world, you going to have to pay us for that. That's what's going on. So tonight, we have a litany of examples of what entities are doing to reduce their carbon footprints on the road to attaining net zero carbon emissions. In this vein, tonight's topics include the big one we talked about it last week: Bahamas in multi-billion carbon blue carbon credit boost. What they call blue carbon credit is when something from the sea is absorbing the carbon out there. So we's big time blue carbon people, eh? The Bahamas recently received a huge multi-billion-dollar boost to efforts to monetize its blue economy assets after a study pegged the environmental value of its seagrass beds at greater than 15 times the country's pre-COVID era GDP. Eh? So our GDP was so much before COVID came and knocked it down a little bit. But now we're saying it's going to multiply about 15 times. You know how rich that can make us? We ain't got no more debt after the first year. And the question is, could this be for real? And I say in the Bahamas, because there ain't no other country sitting like us right now. Yes, you get some that got a percentage of what we have. But out of the whole Caribbean, we have some 62% out of the whole Caribbean. So if we convert that, let's say that was oil. We know Trinidad got a little oil. I think they just find some oil off Grenada. The Bahamas would have had 62% of the oil in the whole region. Now we got 62% of the blue carbon. And they are quite expensive because everybody go and buy them in order to keep the operation going. I mean, they only got to buy it. They got people making ways to trap carbon and put them under the heat now so that they could have carbon credits or they could sell that to people. That's how serious this thing is right now. So, recent research led by the University of Michigan found that the Bahamas has over 60% of the Caribbean seagrass. The seagrass alone, now they ain't talking about, like I said, I know about the salt marshes. I don't know if the Bahamas big on that. I don't know nothing but salt marshes, right? Somebody could call in and say, well, this is what salt marshes is. We got some. Oh, no, but we ain't got none of that. I don't know. I don't really care. Because I know we loaded with seagrass and we loaded with mangroves. So, we sitting good. The study provided that the total ecosystem services, that's the seagrass, the salt marshes, and the mangroves, is worth $156 billion every year. I mean, we only a handful of people. We got what, 400,000 the most? Let's say 500,000 people. You notice, what is a billion? We don't even have 1 million people. A billion is 1,000 million. So if you get $1,000 million times 156 every year, come on, man. Yes, you have to spend some to keep our mangroves and stuff protected and all the rest of that. But even if you only get half of that, we can't spend that. What we can spend it on? I have to give the people some money. I'm their government. The people can need some of that money. You spoil us. I mean, you think we care? You got a line? Boy, I ain't looking for no calls tonight. But anyway, this is the call-in show. Caller, on line 1. Thank you so much for calling.
Hey, Mr. Ben, how you doing?
Top shape and getting better, my friend. What's happening?
Man, it's a pleasure to hear you on this radio again on this Tuesday afternoon, informing the Bahamians of what we got in the Bahamas.
Boy, we loaded.
Listen, the salt marshes down in Andros.
Oh, we have some?
I say the salt marshes in Anza.
I didn't know we had none. What that is? What that really is? I mean, I've been to sea plenty years, but I don't know. Maybe I look at it and didn't know it was salt marsh. What is a salt marsh?
It's a place where it's more like where the mangroves are.
Mangroves?
It's billions of dollars worth of limestone rock that the companies want to take out of Angeles right now.
That ain't like where the custard pond must be. You see, I grew up in South Africa, so I know about the custard pond and
them salt marshes where the mangroves grow.
Yeah.
It's billions of dollars worth of limestone that companies mine in Grand Bahama right now, right close to the wood.
Yeah.
What I mean, going down 80, 90 feet.
Yeah.
Where the natural resources. And the Bahamas ain't get what we supposed to be getting or the things like that.
Yeah, but my brother, you know when they were doing some things in Bimini, North Bimini. And I heard environmentalists complaining that, oh, they filling in some of our mangroves. I was like, man, what these people worrying about? Mangroves all over the Bahamas, but they worrying about this little mangrove, and we need development. But now,
if these guys want to do some digging and taking out limestone, right? We need to extend our borders like further to the east. In the ocean, they need to go to the ocean and dig them up.
We don't want no more limestone. We ain't got time for that. You know how much money we could be making off seagrass?
You can't mess up the limestone in the land because that's where the marshes are, that's where the mangroves are, and that's where all the carbon is being like stored and stuff like that.
Yeah, but we don't want them digging up nothing like them kind of things. Is that with you? So the digging up gotta stop, right?
Right.
Do you know about Mangrove Key just north of Grand Bahama? You ever been in the back there?
Yeah, I've been to Mangrove Key. I've been to Mangrove Key between Grand Bahama and the little place over there.
Yeah, Walker's Key.
Walker's Key and Grand Key.
Walker's Key, Sail Key, Grand Key, all them up north of but Mangrove Key, I used to go there. We used to go there to search because I was on the fence force. Mm-hmm. When we go there, we search and see if road fellas like you try to stash anything, right? So, but I realize those mangroves are so tall. That stand out to me because that's one key I know we can't walk on because mangroves everywhere. And they come and bear with the water. But you know how much money that is right now?
You know what it is? That's good for the Bahamas. That's why we are what we are.
Good for the Bahamas?
You know what I mean? I'm glad that you're taking, the audacity to plant these little trees back over again and let them go. But we got some vicious fellas. You know what I mean? Like the guys down the Bahama Rock. You know what I mean? Then we got some other guys, Bahamian guys, who trying to dig up and looking for the limestone under where the marshes are. You know what I mean? You're going to destroy what we have. You know what I mean?
Well, now that we know.
The blue economy for a lesser thing, which is like limestone. You know, compared to like the carbon zinc. You're going to be messing it up. You know what I mean? We don't want nothing to mess it up because I want my great-great-great-grandchildren to have their share.
But I don't want no great-great-grand. I want me now. Give me. If they get, that's cool. But I want me. let me get my couple million and relax myself because I a little old now. I could take a little hour and don't have to worry about the money coming because the government give me $1 million a year. That's all I want, you know.
Well, I'll tell you one thing between you and me right now. You know what I mean? You know, after dealing with money for a while, you get tired of money. These billionaires are tired of money. They you know what I mean? They don't know what to do with it. They just tired of money. You know what I mean? You go and ask them for something, they probably give it to you right away.
Well, I won't get tired. I want our carbon credits to cause me to be tired too.
Yeah, well, anyhow, bring this up. You know what I mean?
Thank you for calling, man. Thank you for calling.
You know what we really need?
Yeah.
We really need for the government to extend the Bahamian borders like another 200 miles to the east. So we can have all that carbon out there too. You know what I mean? That could be a part of.
Yeah, but we already have that. We already have. But we already have that. No, 200 miles off any piece of Bahamian land. Once it don't conflict with another country, is what they call exclusive economic zone for us. That's around the whole Bahamas. We already have that. Yeah.
I'm actually saying 200 miles more. 400 to 600 miles to the east.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree. No, but you got to remember now.
600 miles to the east.
See, the thing.
You surely have enough like carbon credits to take care of our people.
No.
For eternity. You know,
This,
600 miles off the Bahamas coast.
no, but these things.
Okay.
The reason why.
Anybody out there?
The reason why we have so much carbon credits, or why we have these things, you gotta remember they only be in shallow water because they need the sun to reach them. When you go miles out in the ocean, the sun can't get to the bottom of that.
The earth is hot. The sun is parching the earth from the distance that it is, and deep down there, you still get warm down there also. You know what I mean? The heat gets all over the way, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, but we ain't gotta worry about that.
And the earth is being cooked by the sun.
We gotta take care of what we have. We already have our mangroves. We already have our seagrass. We gotta make sure nobody trying to poison them, because you gotta remember these things live in the trees, you know.
Well, guess what? Guys putting these big sticks of dynamite down inside the earth. You know what I mean? It's blowing up our land right now.
Yeah, but we could.
You know what happens with the powder, the whatever it is, it floats from one place to the rest. And it kills our fish. One time I see that Bahamas up there, like 1,000 goldfish. They say they want to know what happened to them. You know what happened with them.
Well,
people don't know what happened with them. But then, you know what I mean? Yeah, people who play like they didn't know. I mean, they wipe it under the rug.
We gotta stop all of that. We gotta stop all this oil drilling, looking to see if we get oil. We gotta stop. You can imagine if we drilling for oil, right? To see if we get oil, because we in contract with this company. They check in the Bahamas to see if we have oil, and they do come across something and have a big spill and that mess up all our marshes and all of our carbon credit plants, because they doing foolishness. You know how bad oil right now. Oil could be. Hey, by 2050, there ain't gonna be no more oil, you know.
You want to hear something? Between you and me, they got some oil holes drilled down there, whatever island close to Cuba, down in the back there, and got some oil wells drilled down in the back there from long time.
Yeah, but those oil-rich countries ain't gonna have no money coming in 2050 because people are no longer gonna be using oil. Yeah, and I can tell you in a little while what they're going through right now. What they're going through right now. They moving away from oil.
Yeah, we move into renewable energy. They
got green fuel. Anyway. I got plenty to talk about before this next couple minutes up. Look here, my brother. Take care of yourself up there in the 8 Mile Rock. You know how we roll. When I come back, we gotta go and have one or two more.
Okay.
And thanks for calling, man. And we'll keep in touch.
All right then. Say hello to everyone.
Indeed, my brother. You got it.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's my good friend on the 8 Mile Rock days. He's not quite the environmentalist, but he's an old seafarer and he knows about these things. A lot of this is just common sense. Common sense. That's all it is. So we move on to opportunity to use shipping carbon levy for maximum impact. As the global consensus grows on the need for carbon pricing on emissions as part of measures to decarbonize the commercial shipping industry. Now we be back to IMO shipping, eh? You know, decarbonize mean they don't want ship to be putting out no carbon. We decarbonize shipping, and they decarbonize in the land too, especially where they have these commercial plants, energy plants. So decarbonize the commercial shipping industry. The focus is now shifting to how the massive resources generated can be utilized. The World Bank released a detailed report indicating that between 1 trillion and 3.7 trillion could be raised by 2050 via carbon pricing. So they can put a price on this carbon that we take out there. And the World Bank will have to give us that money in credit to keep taking the carbon out there. Because we helping the whole world, eh? Once we decide now we can dig up all our mangoes and just let them waste away. And the whole world have been problems. Because we are the most forward country when it comes to blue carbon in the whole world. We got more than everybody else. So, we got plenty of money to get. This converts to an annual amount of revenues between 41 billion and 105 billion annually. This is the World Bank now, and this only for dealing with the ships, right? And whatnot. Shipping must move to zero carbon fuels by 2050. suggesting that whatever CO2 a ship emits into the environment must be zero. Although they put it up there, they got to pay for some carbon sinks to put down that same amount of carbon on their behalf. And they got to get a certificate to say that. And to pay for it, carbon is going to be going at a rate of, well, right now it's anywhere between like $20-$25 a ton and like $130 a ton. That's the kind of range right now. But as things move on, that's going to that can keep moving up. And the Bahamas is poised and ready because we got the natural, I can tell you about some of the things people doing to take carbon out there, but we got the natural ability to do it because of our layout, our shores, our sea plants, right? So in decarbonizing shipping, the Bahamas stand to gain billions in revenue annually based on the seagrass, the salt marsh, and the mangroves' ability to absorb carbon at high levels. 35 times more than the rainforest. And people would have thought the rainforest used to take in more carbon than anywhere else. No, there's under these water, under the sea, in these shallow waters, they can't on bad, Science of movement on the carbon level. What is IMO really saying about this, Recently, the IMO Greenhouse Gas Working Group concluded its deliberations ahead of MEPC 80. Now, MEPC, I mentioned this last week. IMO got certain, they got the fellow who in charge is the Secretary General, just like in every other United Nations entity. The Secretary General is overall in charge. And then they get various committees. The main committee is the MSC committee, and that is MSC shipping. That's Maritime Safety Committee. That's the main one. Because IMO deal with safety on ships is the main thing, right? And then the next one, because they also got to deal with environmental protection from ships. So that's the MEPC they talking about now. Maritime, or marine, because maritime is above the water, marine is underneath. They got to be impacted. Marine Environmental Protection Committee, MEPC. So they apparently had their 80th session, and during that session, of course, what they talk about? Carbon levy. How much money we going to say the carbon weight before ships got to pay it, or before we got to pay it to offset what ships putting out there. That's what that's all about. So the primary policy that industry insiders say is required to actualize the green transition is an IMO carbon levy, a market-based measure without a predictable tax on carbon and a corresponding subsidy for green fuel. There is no price signal to underpin multi-year investments in expensive green ammonia or green methanol at industry level scale. So ships are now turning to use ammonia and methanol instead of fossil fuel because they don't give off as much carbon as fossil fuel. Plus, in addition to that, they're finding ways to yuck out the carbon before it even goes into the air. So as the ship burns that ammonia and methanol and whatnot, ain't no carbon getting in there because they grab that and they trapping it on board the ship. And they got to do it later. They got to take that to a facility that can process that, turn it into either something hard or liquid, and they find a way to dig holes hundreds of feet in the ground, spaces, and put that in there so that can't come back, especially if they make it solid. So that out of there now. So that's a credit. That's how that works. What's missing is consensus on carbon pricing. Right? They got to say how much is carbon. They're waiting on IMO to put a price on it. We do need a price on carbon in order to support the adoption of these low carbon fuels. Without it, it doesn't happen. So very soon, dear listener, they have to come up with a price for a ton of carbon because it's measured in tons. And millions of tons are absorbed in the Bahamas' carbon sinks on an ongoing basis. So we got to get paid for that. We can protect that. We ain't going to let nobody touch that. We can try to grow some more like everybody else in the world trying to do. But we want our funds. Give us. A carbon levy has always been a hard sell for oil-reliant IMO member states. Now you get, like I said, in the Persian Gulf, China, Russia, they sell fuel to the world. You think they will stop making money of selling the fuel? Because that's what get them where they are now as far as how rich they could be. But now, if all ships stop using fossil fuel and they turn to things like methanol and they even talking about nuclear. They talking about commercializing nuclear because nuclear doesn't give off carbon dioxide. Plus, you could get power. But of course, you know, them nuclear reactors are very dangerous. Because if nuclear escapes, that means the whole area can get wiped out. So that's why nuclear is so dangerous, eh? You have to keep that so controlled. Because if that get out, you will have a mass destruction. Even in peacetime, if you have a nuclear reactor for, let's say, because I don't know if you recall, there was a time ago when they had a hurricane, a typhoon off Japan. And they had a nuclear power station right near the coast. And all they was worrying about is if any of that gamma ray nuclear stuff escaped from the reactor. And at the end of the day, none of it escaped. That's why nobody got killed, eh? But they could be very dangerous. So we got to be very careful when we put them, how strong those structures are, because Mother Nature ain't playing with us these days. So carbon levy has always been a hard sell for oil-reliant countries. But this year, there are signs that it could be headed for a vote. So what the MEPC do, the the Marine Environmental Protection Committee, they're going to actually have the 170 countries that make up the IMO vote on what this levy could be. You know, some countries ain't want it to be nothing because they don't want it to stop. They're making a lot of money. Why you want that to stop? I can't say I blame them, but man, look here, the rest of the world in trouble. You all be in trouble too. So let's get with the program, eh? China tries to block carbon levy, net zero pledge at IMO. So China was one of those countries that say they think it's a bad idea to try to go to net zero by 2050 because ships depending on it, countries, call electrical plants depending on it. How you can just try in a short space of time say they can't have no. But guess what? They ain't checking for China because China need to understand what is more important. The 1.5 degrees centigrade or making ships no longer put the stuff in there. Making countries, making land no more longer put stuff in there. That can't be accounted for to say zero went in there because so much came out. All right? So the Chinese government, who's the world's biggest ship owner, China owns more ships than any other country, is working to block attempts to bring shipping into alignment with the Paris Climate Agreement. So they don't even want it to happen. Because you know what's going to happen if that happens. Then China may no longer be making all the money they're making. And, of course, you got other countries take them over again. So why would China be against this initiative? Hello? China sells a dray load of fossil fuel, eh? One of many countries that have financial reasons to maintain the status quo and cause the level to raise beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade. What the countries that benefit so heavily in the Persian Gulf, how devastating this initiative may be to them. Because now you got to remember they used to making billions a year. And a billion can turn to thousands, not even millions. How do people can survive that? They ain't got nothing else they depend on but oil. Selling fossil fuel. But you know, what they doing is causing a world problem. So because they're causing a world problem, it is what it is. It is what it is. They just got to deal with it, eh? Just like how we had to deal with it when we wasn't producing oil. So, our government, last week in the dailies, our government is examining merits for the oil explorer to now get involved with carbon credits. You remember the oil explorer who come out to dig wells and check to see if you get oil. And the first part over, but they got 2 more to go. They got 3 more years of that if the government approves it. But we don't want that, Mr. Government. We don't want that approved. Yeah, we know they invested $100 million plus in what they're about to do as far as exploration is concerned. But we don't want them touching our carbon credits or getting involved in that. So how could this company go from checking to confirm if the Bahamas have oil to wanting to assist with Bahamas carbon credits? You know what? I smell a rat. A big rat. A vampire bat, the man saying the song. So, and please, no more oil explorations, Mr. Government. I don't care if we got to pay them back. We don't want them digging up for no more oil because our carbon credit is too viable to us. It's too expensive. We don't want oil missing get on them. We now got carbon sinks and we know how valuable they are. Far more valuable than oil, eh? And what if we have a big accident with them oil spills and they melt? No, sir. No. Let them stop where they are. What they used to say back in the day, stop, review, and cancel. Stop and cancel. Don't even review nothing. Let's stop and cancel that oil exploration thing. That company ain't got nothing to do with us. If they spend some money, let's give them the money back. I don't care about all of that. Don't touch the carbon credits. How are you going to compare the $100 million they spend with the $160 plus billion we can make every year? There's no comparison, man. Tell them go fly a kite. Thank you very much. Got another call on the line. Calling on Maritime Matters. Good night to you.
Good night, Captain. Good and being the venerable one.
My brother, how are you?
I guess I'm okay, man. You talking about the carbon thing?
Yeah, man. That's money.
Yeah, money. But I think SINK, but NASA like you ready to think too.
NASA will sink if we don't do anything about all this carbon in the air, because we passed that 1.5 degrees centigrade and the whole Bahamas will be gone.
Exactly. But you talking about basically hello.
Yeah, I lost you there for a second, about a minute. I come back, man. I hearing you now.
Yeah. No, how that fire is up in Canada. It's a big fire, right, going on now.
Yeah, but you know what those fires doing? When they have those forest fires, Go ahead.
It have like an effect on the weather, because when the rain came around, the rainforest were on fire. So that means this year we probably have some vicious storms because of the fire that's up in Canada, and also the war, that's the Russian war. Because we live in one planet, and if it heats up one side, the next side cool off, it really China need rain. We getting all the rain, China getting none.
You're absolutely right. We could feel the instability, and then the instability happened because the carbon is trapped. It put a layer up there so the heat can't get past it. So the heat is being trapped on ice, and the heat can always be moving around. Heat always trying to rise. But the seminar we lose it there. You can call me back anytime, man, because I think we lost you there. So what Brother Seminar, he's saying, and he's right on the nail. We have to do something, and the Bahamas is the sink. So that's SINC, I think. I think it's SINK. SINC, yes. We carbon sinks, right? Because of what we have that absorbs the carbon. We have some that store carbon, we have some that breathe in carbon and X out oxygen, and that changes the balance of the atmosphere. Eh? So we have some researchers that they lock up carbon by turning seaweed into biocoal. You know the seaweed. Do you know that they have tons and tons of seaweed going around the world? I remember one time they say just about 2 months ago, some was coming to the Bahamas in droves. They had this big, couple miles long way of seaweed just moving, and it never came to us, thank goodness, because you know that the Clogger beach and stuff right there. But we have enough seaweed on the beach as it is. But what these people are doing, they have a new method for carbon capture and storage. It's now being trialed. It's still in trial process by the Norwegian researchers. The seaweeds cultivated in the sea off the coast of Norway will be converted into biocoal and used to improve agricultural land. So what they'll do is they'll apply heat to it and add some other chemicals that could be used as fertilizer. So they turn the carbon into solid, add some stuff to it, break it back up, and use it for fertilizer because trees like carbon. They breathe in carbon dioxide. So do you know where coal comes from? I hear people talking about how you go in the Haitian village and they were cutting down trees. I was trying to figure out, okay, so they cutting down trees. How come they could cut down trees and get coal and we can't do it? It ain't a tree. The coal is in the root of the tree. Because what the tree does is it stores carbon and it goes to the bottom into the roots. And so when the tree then get cut down, they start chopping up the roots and heat that up, and that's where you get coal. So, we need to stop that. Because that, again, is releasing carbon into the air, eh? So these people in Norway are going to get the seaweed. And how are they going to do it? They can get the seeds from the seaweed. And they're going to just run a little rope like that the seed could fit into. And then they'll put that back out on the sea like early next year or the same year. And early next year, after about a year, it starts to grow. And what they're saying is that when they're in the process of growing, it is taking in a lot of carbon dioxide for growth. Because it's greedy when it's growing. So they can use the same seaweed that was taking carbon dioxide out there, take the seeds, redeploy it, and after you start growing, they want to get that growing phase, because the growing phase is what take a lot of carbon out there, right? My goodness, are we going already? Anyway, we can keep moving. So that's what's going on. So that's one way of taking carbon out of the environment, eh? They capture it, and they store it, and they process it, and they use it for agricultural land. And they get another operation going on. This BASF, and no, I see what that means, but it's a company in the U.S., in the Gulf area, that dealing with low carbon blue ammonia. What this ammonia does, and they say the concept is that approximately 95% of the carbon dioxide generated from the production process would be captured and permanently stored in the ground, right? So they got this thing, they got what you call power plants all over the place, eh? So they're using fossil fuel. What they say they could do, even if they change their line of fuel. See, fossil fuel burns less out more carbon than any other type of fuel, but you still have gas and stuff is still letting out fuel, letting out carbon dioxide, but that's in less quantity, or less percentages. So what this company is going to do is wherever they have their plants, they're going to capture the carbon out of the exhaust or before it reach into there, and they're going to convert that carbon. First of all, they'll break it down by heating it or whatever they want to. They turn it into solid, right? They capture it, they turn it into solid, and then they could turn it into dust or whatever and then spread it out where it wouldn't be escaping because it's no longer vapor. And it could be used for farmland, eh? Retrofit package uses sails, solar, and batteries. So what ships are doing? Ships are realizing now that I can't just do what I normally do no more. And I could tell you, they got a lot of ships being built now, even the last cruise ship. And we could talk about that next week, because right now we down to 20 minutes. We could talk about the cruise ship that they're no longer going on regular engines. They're now doing biofuel. What they're doing is they're starting to cut down on the amount of emissions that they did before. Now, what a lot of older ships could do is they could convert that fossil fuel engine right? And they do this under class, of course. The classification society got to prove this. They got to do all the drawings, do all the conversion, and they can convert it to a more environmentally friendly fuel, like natural gas or propane or one of those lighter stuff that gives off less carbon dioxide, right? And once they do that, they will get the credits for that conversion from. So instead of paying for all that to happen, they'll get enough credits for the amount of fuel they can now be. They're not going to be the amount of carbon they can no longer be put in the atmosphere, and they will get that credit for that. So although it costs them a lot to change the engine, over time it's going to pay back, and that's how the IMO is looking at dealing with credits. You could get credit by changing and improving what you have, and where you're now emitting less, you will be credited for that. So retrofit package uses sails, solar, and batteries. So the ship, although they use an engine, in addition to the engine, they put masts where they could open up sails. So if you got strong wind and they go in a certain direction, that could help, right? Solar panel, maybe for all the lights on board. Now you can remember these ships on the high seas, they always got the sun on them when in the daytime, eh? So they could have solar panels that they could use for all the lighting and lighter stuff within the ship. So they wouldn't have to be using a generator power to power up those certain areas in the ship. And then batteries. Now, of course, batteries don't emit any kind of carbon dioxide. But you still got to make batteries. The solution, which was awarded an approval in principle, AIP, from the Italian Classification Society, RENA. So RENA, registered Italiano, yada, yada, yada. RENA is one of the big classification societies. They're part of the IACS, the International Association of Classification Societies. RENA approved in principle this retrofit package for the ship, where they're going to incorporate rigid sails, right? Sails that are rigid, wind grab them and they're rigid. Solar panels. Of course, you need solar panels to give you lighting and light stuff. Batteries. Optimize weather routing. So they're going to make sure try and route the ship so that they could utilize the wind better and all the rest of that type of stuff, right? And smart decision support systems to dramatically reduce emissions of an existing Newcastle Max bulk carrier. So they're trying this with a bulk carrier. So that here, what is a bulk carrier? See, we talk these things, and I know some of y'all don't be following me all the time. Annie Mae, good night. Lord, I hail Annie Mae tonight. Annie Mae, I know you're listening. You know you're my number one fan. I got to say good night to you. So, it cost me forget. Oh, okay. So the bulk carrier. The bulk carrier is a ship that goes to like Morton. They're going to take that salt and put it straight into the hull of the ship. They got what they call tops. Every hole got a top. They move the top and they put the stuff straight into the hull of the ship. Just like oil tankers. They put the oil straight into the hull. They ain't toting the oil on top of on the deck. The oil is in the hull. So because they carry things in bulk, it could be sand, it could be salt, it could be cement, it could be water, it could be fuel, it could be orange juice, whatever they carry in bulk, not in packages. Putting straight into the hull of the ship. They are known as bulk carriers. Eh? So this bulk carrier, which is, I don't know what Newcastle Max all about, but they say it's a Newcastle Max. So maybe they got something they call Newcastle size. That's the guy they have post-Panamax and all them things for the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal. Well, I think the Suez Canal have no limit now. But this is a Newcastle Max bulk carrier that they trying this thing where they doing all these different adding wind, sails and solar panels and that type. You know, all ships eventually got to be doing this, eh? Because the more carbon you could reduce from being emitted from your ship, the more money you save. And then they get the highest power output. You know, I think we need to take our break because we ain't take no break yet. My sponsors got to be mentioned at least once, eh? Producer, could we go to break, sir? I know we only got a couple of minutes left, but let's take a little quick break, and then when I come back, we'll try to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. You are listening to Maritime Matters. On this show, we talk maritime. And tonight, we talking all about carbon credits for this good country, the Bahamas. We got carbon sinks that are going to make billions a year, billions of dollars. Right now, we owe, I think, our debt is somewhere in the range of 12 to 14 billion. We can knock that out in 6 months, right? We could be making billions. We could be trying to figure out what we could do. And Mr. Government, we ain't getting rid of you if this thing happen, right? We've been getting rid of our governments left, right, and center. Left, right, and center, because we wasn't happy. But you give all us some good dollars, you ain't got to get anywhere right now. Let's do this thing right, man. The world is in trouble. The Bahamas have a good portion of the solution. They have to come to us. They have to pay us some big money. Now, I don't want no oil company, oil drilling company getting involved in no carbon credits. If we can deal with companies, let's deal with companies who nobody thinks. All they're trying to do is piggyback. We ain't want no piggybackers right now, because when they come to us, they ain't come to us to bring us nothing. They come take the money out. So, let's do this thing right, Mr. Government. Get yourself a chance to do too. Just get our money sorted out the right way for our carbon credits. We ain't got no problem. Boy, but if you mess that up, I don't know. So, I was saying Annie Mae and we talked yesterday. Annie Mae told me she was all over the place. From Sunday, she lived by Lorraine, she been by Nisi, by Viney, she been by Margot. I think she back home now. You may think you're back home now, so you're right back in our hot house, in our hot yard out there, and you still gotta go outside when the sun drop now. And May is over 90, so that's my sweet auntie. That's my number one fan. So we get the highest power output demonstrated from direct ammonia fuel cells, right? Green ammonia, produced by electrolysis, powered by renewables, is a carbon-free fuel that the company believes has great potential to decarbonize the maritime industry. So you got this fuel now. I don't know how much they could make it, how soon they could make it, but they saying this green ammonia is a fuel that when it burns, no carbon comes out. You see how they finding so many ways of making this moving away from fossil fuel thing possible, and it go wake, and they say in 2050 this may happen for 2030, the rate they get now. So the SOFC, I don't know what that means, that's a company again, system design has been evaluated for compliance with DNV class. So here's another classification society. See, now you gotta remember, these ships, their machinery have to be approved by the classification society that manages that ship. See, every ship before it gets registered need to have a classification society, because the classification society have the systems. They tell you when you need to check your crankshaft. They tell you when you need to change your cylinder liners. They tell you when you need to. They say, you know, these ships and things, they're running internationally. They are under stringent measures and procedures and inspections. You know how often a ship is inspected? A lot of people don't know, you know. They have, first of all, entity that registered your ship. Let's use our registration, the Bahamas Maritime Authority, for example, right? When the BMA register a ship under the Bahamas flag, she have to register it for international trade. She don't get involved with ships but operating only in the Bahamas. That's part department. They deal with domestic, right? So the BMA registers that ship. Before they are registered, the BMA ensures that you not only have a classification society, because they got all kind of classification societies around the world, but your classification society got to be one that is a part of the group of top classification societies called IACS, the International Association of Classification Societies. You're talking about ABS out of the US. You're talking about Lloyd's Register out of England. Germanische Lloyd out of what the place name where Hitler was. Germany. France is BV, Bureau Veritas. Holland is DNV, Diagnostic Veritas. We just talked about RENA. RENA is from Italy there. And you get NKK out of Korea. You get the thing about Russia. Russia have its own classification society to deal with the ships. They don't really deal with ships around the world like how ABS and the rest of them does. But Russia is good. China's good. They have their own classification society. And I remember them names. But they got about 10 to 12 that belongs to the IACS, eh? And the BMA say you got to get one of them to manage the IMO, all those conventions and codes and all the rest of the stuff IMO throw at you that you got to comply with and be in compliance with at all times. And class is good at that. That's what they did. That's what they did for. Boy, they ain't cheap now. Class is very expensive. But if you're going to change the engine in your ship, you got to get class to prove that before you even put that in. Because they got to make sure it lines up with the Solis Convention. Solis Convention, they deal with everything in the Safety of Life at Sea Convention. They got to make sure it lines up with the MAPOL Convention, which means it's not going to be polluting the seas. And now we don't pollute the air, because we in more trouble from polluting the air than from polluting the sea. Eh? Because if we don't get it right with this carbon elimination, we will be eliminated. So let's get it right. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining us late, I didn't put up the numbers in. 326-8255 is the number to call. You got less than 10 minutes left. I know what happened to my boy Herbie tonight, but he always on top. He always call late though. One thing I can say, he always call late. I thank those who called for calling. I know some of y'all don't like to get too much involved in these technical stuff, but you could call me and say hello sometimes, you know. Sometimes I need to know someone who's listening. But anyway, as you know, tonight we were dealing with our country, the Bahamas. The fact that we are poised to be a super wealthy country in a matter of months. I'll say a year, but definitely before the next election, eh? Definitely before the next election. We should all be blinging and singing happy songs. Because when you go to work as a police today, next year this time, so that $32,000 a year you're making, that could be $132,000 a year. And 5 years from now, that could be at least $250,000 a year one police can make. We could be paying big money now. We got money and we can spend big money and our people could be happy. Our people could be trained and all that, be professional. We got a chance to really fix this country. We could put our ports in every single island. because we have money piled up like that to put them there. And the cruise ships ain't gonna take no advantage of us no more, right? Because they know, boy, that country got money, you can't just go around them. I'm with no foolishness. You can use the ports we got, yeah, you can keep yours, but we ain't want you build no more, you know. We can build them for you. We are gonna decentralize Nassau. Because when we got all those ports out there built in Betsy Bay, Meguana, we have a big cruise ship port. You know how much cruise ships get in the Eastern Caribbean, and when they go down to Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, they need some place to stop halfway. Let's be passing Betsy Bay. You know, let me tell you what the cruise ships do. Cruise ships have what they call a day on board. Right? You have a day when the ship just sailing straight through, because they got to relocate. Their location voyages from the Bahamas, and we only got two all our ports in the north, right? And they got to go from there to either Puerto Rico or Antigua, one of those foul countries, which takes so long. But they can't stop nowhere on the way. Well, sometimes they stopped at the Grand Lake. That's the only one they stop to. Meguana and nothing, Inagua and nothing, Crooked Island, Acklands, Cat Island, Eleuthera, San Salvador. None of them got no place for no ship to stop. How silly is that? A country like ours. Some people wonder if we got any sense. You know how much money that is we could be making? A lot of cruise ships passing these places every day. Devil's Point, Cat Island, ripe and ready for port. Do you know how much Cat Islanders will go back home? If they know that cruise ship, or those 2 cruise ships, or those 3 cruise ships that are stopping there needs plenty things. I mean, the couple that stop in Nassau, you know how much activities they just generate? And come on, man, you be touring all day in Cat Island. You could take people to their own private beach. That's all some people want. Take me to a private beach where I can mark out my point, and I get chill there for the day. Come pick me up later on. Give me a couple of beers. That's all they want. Little mosquito might bite, little sandflies might bite, but you give them their little off and tell them, look, hey, you got to use this because you know you ain't used to this. Anyway, Devil's Point, Landrail Point, Crooked Island. Come on. Landrail Point. That's where all our boats go now. Well, not no cruise ships. But why is it that we can't have a cruise ship? They got the ocean touching the land. That's an easy fix. Salina Point, Acklands. You build a port, we'll put the roads going there, and the cruise ships will stop. This Bahamas is a destination by itself. You could make a cruise ship just leave one of those big hubs in Florida. Now we can't match them hubs now. I mean, won't get overzealous and thinking we could do home important, right? Because the only way I think we could do home important is if we cut out border tax and convert that to income tax, so that the people could get here and the ships could take on supplies. It'll be just as cheap, because once we cut out border tax now, we might have Walmart right here. We may have Sam's right here. We may have, come on, man, all them big time stores will be right here, because they ain't got to pay no tax to bring this stuff just a little further in Florida. Anyway, slipping off the point as I run down to my last 3 minutes. We got Machu Inagua, my good friend, Captain Stevie Fox. He had little cruise ships coming there already, but he don't have the ability to build nothing for them to come inside the harbor. But we could do that, people. We don't need, the government don't need to have carbon credit money to do that. We could do that now. But we little slack. We ain't got the vision. We ain't trying to, we allowing the cruise ships to wag us. We supposed to be the dog and there's the tail wagging the dog. Because they got 7 or 8 facilities and we only got 1. I even ain't counting the one in Freeport. Okay, 2. And the one we can put in Morgan's Bluff soon, that'll be 3. You know, I've been preaching Morgan's Bluff. We need to do that. Yeah? Even with all this money we're getting from carbon credits, we got to do Morgan's Bluff. Ragged Island, boy, I don't know if Ragged Island could ever have enough people to deal with a cruise ship, so we probably could leave that gunpoint area out there. But anyway, let's do it anyhow. Because, come on, they could walk the key of the island. You call Ragged Island a key. You could walk the island. You could get some nice Boy, look at Ragged Island. People could bake up a bread. Nice, fresh, baked bread. Once they know the cruise ship coming in, they got them stock up and pile up. Because, people like that kind of thing. They could do all kind of little fishing activity. Ragged Island, full of good fishing waters, fishing grounds, whatever you want, you can get in Ragged Island, right? So let's put one there anyhow. Abaco, just south of Sandy Point there, the Crossing Rocks, whatever area, I forget what the Southwest Point. Come on, man, the ocean touching that. Let's put one there. And we could go in other parts, Cherokee Sound. We go other parts where the ocean coming in and build a dock inside so that we ain't away with. Oh shucks, 1 minute left. Well, we know Drake Salandras, that's a done deal. You don't know about that. Rocos Point, Exuma, in that area, Three Sisters, anywhere around there. Clarencetown, Long Island. Come on, man. We need the Bahamas to be all poured out. Ladies and gentlemen, we want our carbon credits. We're the biggest carbon sink in the world right now, as far as all those salt marshes and seagrasses and mangroves are concerned. And, we have to make sure we get what we so rightly deserve. That's why they say the Bahamas is a place where God lives. Mr. Miles Monroe tells us that over and over again. Now look at it coming to fruition. But my friend is, oh, look at God. It coming to us. With that, people, I say thank you so very much for listening to this show. I apologize again for having a flat tire. I hope it ain't flat again when I get outside. And, we got a call. My goodness, I've got to be my friend Herb. Callie on line 1, hello. Callie, you've reached Maritime Matters, hello. Nobody there? Okay. I guess it wasn't my friend Herb, because I know he ain't hanging up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. Again, thank you so much for listening. And next week, we'll talk a little bit more about this carbon credit thing, because this is a big, hot topic. But we'll get into some international feeds as well. And with that, I thank my producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, most wonderful producer in the world. And I thank all my listeners, because you are all making me happy just to know that you're listening. With that, I say to you as always, Maritime Matters, out.
Sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia.
Love 97 FM. The